Please invite the administration to join us. Please invite the administration to join us. Present for this meeting, we have Professor Sophia Chen, Under-Secretary for Food and Health, Ms. Janice C., Deputy Secretary for Food and Health, Mr. Robert Law, Senior Pharmacist from Department of Health, and Dr. Theobald Chen, Senior Biotechnology Officer 2 from ITC. We've got a few papers for the meeting, and if we are ready, I'll give the floor to Professor Sophia Chen to walk us through the paper.
多謝主席。
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. I'll first talk about the paper on registration and testing of proprietary Chinese medicines, or PCMs. The trade is very concerned about this subject to promote the development of Chinese medicine. The registration of PCM is one of our priorities. Members may recall that in 2003, Chinese Medicine Board was set up to look at how we can develop Chinese medicine as a new industry in Hong Kong that will include the testing and registration certification of PCMs. We have got representatives from the Chinese medical practitioner industry and also members from different sectors of the community. And under the CB, there is the Chinese Medicines Board. Under the Chinese Medicine Council, there is the Chinese Medicines Board and Chinese Medical Practitioners Board. And thanks to the Health Services Panel, this subcommittee is set up to discuss in depth matters related to the development of Chinese medicine in Hong Kong, and also to consult members on the way forward for the development of the profession. We understand that the industry has concerns about the registration and testing of PCMs, so we'd like to tell you measures that have been introduced. Regarding the system of registration, please refer to the paper, which is very straightforward. And under CAP 122, the CMB under the CMC has to take into account safety, quality, and efficacy in registering PCMs, and therefore manufacturers have to submit documents on these three areas when they want to register a particular PCM. We've maintained communication with the industry, which has reflected to us their concerns. For details, please refer to the paper. To facilitate the registration and testing of PCMs, we have introduced new measures. In June 2013, the CMB decided to extend the deadline for submitting the product specification and general stability test reports by Hong Kong P holders from the 30th of June 2013 to the 30th of June 2015. And having assessed the progress of submission of registration documents by the holders and feedback from the trade, the CMB has adjusted the processing arrangements in May 2014 with a view to expediting the processing of transitional registration of PCM to formal registration. And the adjusted arrangements mainly focus on three aspects. First, product advocacy documents. We've adjusted the qualification of the author of the formula and principle of formulating the formula. On product quality documents, we've adjusted the technical requirements of product quality and stability test reports. And we've also changed the particulars of the manufacturer, and we've adjusted the requirement for resubmission of documents. And to address the difficulty encountered by the applicants in producing safety and quality testing reports as evidence for fulfilling the registration requirements, the CMB has introduced the following relief measures. For instance, if an applicant fails to submit the testing reports within the prescribed deadline, he may apply for extending the deadline with the CMB if he can provide reasonable justifications. And two, if necessary, the CMB may request the regulatory authorities in the mainland to expand the list of recommended laboratories so as to increase the number of laboratories qualified for conducting the testing. And three, the Department of Health has been regularly holding briefing sessions on technical issues to brief the trade on the registration requirements of PCM and exchange views on technical issues for establishment of quality specifications. I welcome suggestions from members who will listen very carefully. Thank you. So we'll have 1 hour to discuss the registration and testing of PCMs. The remaining time will be spent on the introduction of good manufacturing practice. All right, members can speak for as many rounds as we like, 5 minutes each. Mr. Yu Chi-wing. Chairman, regarding applications, well, you have received over 10,000 odd applications, or 70 odd thousand within the past 10 years. I'd like to know the number of applications that have not been approved and the reasons for the rejection. Do you have the figures? Thank you. Could I defer to my colleague in the Department of Health? Thank you. At first, we received about 13,000 odd applications. We have issued 8,600 HKP, 400 odd HKC certificate, and about 600 HKNT notice of confirmation of non-transitional registration application of PCM. To date, we have rejected about 5,000 odd cases, but the makeup is quite complicated. I will summarize the reasons for the rejection. Some of the PCMs are on sale before 1999 March the 3rd. They would lose the transitional registration status if they do not come to apply. And there are a few thousand of them. About 500 certificates have been issued. So the status is from HKP to HKC. Some were new applications, some were from an HKP status to HKC status. Well, you will only approve a registration after certain testing procedures. How many of them that were rejected failed to pass your test? Were the reasons for a rejection of these cases, such as problem of testing results? If there were, can you tell us the main categories? Now, most of them which failed our testing standards would because of failure to meet with our testing requirements. Very few of them were rejected because they could not meet the standards for, say, pesticide residual or microbial limit test standards. Some might have failed the theories of Chinese medicine. Now, for Western medicine, the formula is clearer, but not so for PCMs. Have some of them been passed after adjustment of their formula or further explanation to you? Yes, we have a very proper review mechanism. Under Section 140, cases rejected can lodge and request for review. We have a hearing mechanism, and the applicant can state their case, and many of them were successful after a review. So long as the applicant is willing to carry out further tests, usually the CMB will allow time for that to be done, and there have been many successful cases. And the Department of Health will offer assistance when necessary. The applicant can meet with the colleagues responsible and will explain to the applicant the reasons for the rejection. And in the process, can the PCM be sold? Will there be any transitional arrangements? If a case is rejected during the period, it cannot be sold because it has lost its transitional registration status. Unless or until the PCM is accepted by the CMB again and the status reinstated, then the PCM can be sold. May I continue, Chairman? We had 3 members. We have only 2 now, so you can continue. We can stop the timer. According to the paper, some laboratories carrying out the tests are in Hong Kong, some on the mainland. There are views that there are too few laboratories and the costs are high. I'd like to know who decided the qualifications of such laboratories and how many of them are there. I'd like to know whether there's been any adjustment to the qualification of such laboratories, and how many more laboratories do you want in Hong Kong so that the testing time can be shortened that may affect the availability of the PCM.
Can I ask Mr. Law of the DFH to answer? Thank you. To respond to this question, overall speaking, the qualification of the laboratories is decided by the CMB, which makes reference to international practices, will require the laboratories to comply with the ISO 1700, which is about international certification requirements. And mainland laboratories are recommended by CFBA of the mainland. And these laboratories are the quality ones on the mainland, so they can help us test PCM. This is about qualification of the institutions. There are about 20 of them now. And we emphasize that very often the industry would talk to the DFH asking for an increase of the number of labs. We have close liaison with the mainland. If necessary, we can expand the list, and we are following up earnestly. Number 3, overall speaking, the testing fee varies. If it is a test for heavy metals or pesticides, the fee is about $3,000 to $5,000. But if the test is more complicated, like chronic toxicity, the test fee may be higher, and it can go to 100,000 and more. And this is decided by market force. We can see that the test fee is more or less the same in the market. Okay, I think you have taken up about 10 minutes, and we'll allow 10 minutes for Dr. Joseph Lee. Thank you, Chairman. This time around, we are talking about registration and testing. From the paper supplied by the administration, we can see concerns raised by the industry that it is expensive and it is difficult to find laboratories that are accredited. Let's ask a fundamental question. The process of registration and the process of PCM testing, I'd like to ask you as a matter of principle, how would that differ from Western medicine? The industry is telling the public that if you ask us to do anything that you do about Western medicine, we will not be able to survive. So can I ask you to write me a flow chart to compare registration and lab tests of Western medicine vis-a-vis PCM? Secondly, now I don't mean to offend, but if I look at the list of officials attending the meeting, I don't see any PCM experts. Mr. Law, I'm not saying you are not an expert, but in the Baptist University now, we do have dedicated and specific Chinese medicine courses. Chinese medicine is a discipline on its own, and I don't know whether a Western medicine pharmacist would be able to handle Chinese medicine, because the industry is already saying that if we apply Western medicine system and Western medicine principles, it will be difficult for Chinese medicine to develop in Hong Kong. C.H. Tung has talked about developing Chinese medicine testing in Hong Kong, but over 10 years have passed and we have achieved little progress. Have you encountered and resolved that problem? At the Chinese Medicine Board, do you have Chinese medicine experts who are experts in the eyes of Chinese medicine practitioners? If you say we are treating Chinese medicine and Western medicine the same way because we go for the molecular testing of the medicines, then that's another matter. But if you continue to apply Western medicine principles to Chinese medicine, I don't think that's good enough. So can you answer that question? Under Secretary. Thank you, Dr. Lee. I can talk about principles, and the D.H. can supplement. The testing of Chinese medicine and Western medicine may be different, but the principles are the same. We look at safety, quality, and efficacy. We look for these three things. In the testing process, we seek to get information about safety, quality, and efficacy. There are transitional arrangements for PCM, but what is most important is safety. We also, of course, ask for information on quality and efficacy before we issue a certificate. The D.H. can say more here. And secondly, Chinese medicine experts. From what I understand and as stated by the D.H., the CMB lays down the standards, and they have set up a framework, and in fact the laboratories concerned have to comply with ISO standards. There are many Chinese medicine experts on CMB. Can the D.H. please supplement? Thank you. We deal with PCM registration on different levels. Number one, the CMB. We have many Chinese medicine experts, including academics, on CMB. And there are many professionals there, including academics from Hong Kong U. And under the PCM registration group, there is an assessment panel. Again, there are different levels. Pharmacological experts and then legal experts and Chinese medicine experts are on that assessment panel. If we run into a problem about registration, we will refer technical issues to the board, and the board will apply Chinese medicine principles and theories to the issues. And at the DFH, we have pharmacists who have been trained in Chinese medicine. We also have Chinese medicine graduates, and we also have graduates from Baptist University and also mainlanders who have got the relevant qualification. So at the DFH, we have a multidisciplinary team. How does that compare with Western medicine? Can you give me a paper tabulating the differences? And I'm talking about PCM. I'm not talking about having dispensers put together a prescription for you. Let me not mention Singapore and Japan, but say in mainland and Taiwan, do you also take reference from their standards? You talk about the ISO standard, that may be the international standard, but are we doing more or less the same as on the mainland and in Taiwan? Supposing the standards are good on the mainland, I don't know anything about it. Why don't we just copy them? Since 1.3 billion people are using a system, why do we, the 7 million of us, want to have another standard? It's a waste of resources. And could it be more convenient for PCM registration as well? And I heard yesterday that we are preventing some import of a mainland PCM. I think the mainland should have the best system, or at least on paper. I don't know about implementation. But should we really set up our own system or standards? Why do we want to be so unique? And also, what about Taiwan? Thank you, Dr. Lee. From what I understand, with regard to Chinese medicine standards, of course, we took reference from the mainland, other countries, as well as international standards. As for import of PCM from the mainland, in fact, the mainland and Hong Kong have different laws to regulate such medicines, and the two places are acting within the framework of their own legal setup. Maybe the DFH can supplement. Thank you. When the CMB set up the registration system, we were greatly helped by the mainland, which sent many experts to Hong Kong to help us set up the registration system. And I can say that overall speaking, our registration system is the product of reference taken from the mainland and other countries, and we couple that with Hong Kong's actual situation. So we have the present registration requirements. Now, why do I want to compare with Western medicine? I'm not a doctor, I'm just a nurse, so I like to talk about that system. If FDA or BP registered Western medicine are imported into Hong Kong, then it will be easier for the DFH to register them in Hong Kong. Can we have similar standards to benchmark Chinese medicine? The DFH, please. Yes, indeed. The CMB has set up a category of pre-existing or traditional medicines, meaning that those medicines or PCM are already subsumed under some medicine standards. And the requirement for documentation for registration will be comparatively simpler, so that registration is easier. like to follow up on your last line. Yes, please be my guest. The mainland helped us to build up this system. At that time, the Chinese medicine books would be at a certain stage, but now they might have improved a lot. Is that right? Thank you for that question. Mr. Chairman, your observation is very correct. In the past 10 years, the mainland has been raising standards and requirements for medicines. In the past, they may only do very simple tests, but now most PCM would have to be subject to 2 kinds of tests, and including extra safety requirements. So indeed, the Chinese laws have imposed further standards on Chinese medicine in the past 10 years. Second round, Mr. U.C. Wing. The administration explained the basic testing requirements, meaning safety, quality, and efficacy. But you also said that in the process of testing, the fees can vary depending on the nature of the tests, and the variation can be very great. My question is, who would decide on the nature of the test? Is it that if I want to give people a better impression, I will test more things, but is there a basic requirement for the tests? Is it that people can do more tests than required? Is it just an individual's choice? Thank you, Mr. Yu. As we said, the test principles have to do with safety, quality, and efficacy. There are tests that have to be undertaken to prove that a PCM is safe. Say it should not contain certain toxins. This is about safety. But if we want to go for quality, some medicines may be of better quality, and also the same goes for efficacy. Maybe the D of H, Mr. Law, can supplement. Why don't I give you an example? Say, with regard to safety, we put our emphasis on heavy metals and pesticides. We have to have reports on that. And then about quality, the manufacturer would have to come up with a standard for quality for our consideration. Say, for example, a cough syrup. The manufacturer may have to say he wants to ensure a certain amount of a certain component, and so he would go for that test in order to prove the quality of a product, and we will have guidelines for those manufacturers, and then we will let them know how to test for that particular component.
The formula should consist medicines with different functions. For instance, for cough syrup, Chunbui, a kind of Chinese medicine, must be the main component, and a test is needed. So you have 3 principles. These principles required by you? Well, it is for the manufacturer to decide on the standards or specifications first, and then we will double check. For instance, for that cough syrup, if the main Chinese medicine Chunbui is not used, but other chemicals used, then it may not be appropriate. We will remind the applicant to change its product specifications, so it is an interactive process. If the manufacturer can give us sufficient justifications as to why Chunbui, this main ingredient is not used, we can discuss with it. What about safety and efficacy? Well, the prescription itself, or the formula itself, is the essence of Chinese medicine. So we must have someone in the know in the CMP to understand. For instance, ginseng soup. Why is it that it can boost your energy? Well, we will ask CMP. The CMP will assess the efficacy. Well, this is about the testing standards. Now we talk about labs, local labs and mainland labs. I'd like to know whether they have different standards. The testing lab must be accredited. Even the mainland, they have a very stringent accreditation requirement. Well, I have further questions to ask. All right, a few more members have joined us. I'd like to follow up on the question by Mr. Yu. You talked about testing. Now, as we all know, there are so many active ingredients in Chinese medicine. For instance, if chunbui is added, the result may be a compound of two active ingredients, and you may not be able to identify the two active ingredients because the result may be a compound of the two ingredients. Because as Joseph Lee said, you have adopted a Western approach, because in the process of cooking, the two active ingredients have combined to form a new compound. So you may not be able to identify the two active ingredients anymore. So do you consider the theories of Chinese medicine? Chairman, you are correct. In past vetting process, we have seen that in a compound formula, after processing, cooking, and various treatment processes, new compounds may be formed, and therefore it is for the author or the manufacturer to give us the theories. For instance, a few active compound ingredients may become a new compound after high temperature treatment. So long as there is good explanation, we can accept that new compound in the formula. Allow me to follow up. I'd like to ask about the situation in other places such as the mainland, Taiwan, and Macau. What methods do they use to ensure the quality? Do they just control the quality of ingredients at source? Do they test for the quality in the final product? Take Chinese pharmacopoeia as an example. For a pill for a formula called 六味地黃丸. The requirements are very similar to what we have in Hong Kong. And take ginseng pill as an example. We know that it has got ginsenol, RB1, RB2. We have got a host of information in basic research studies. So we adopt the same parameters for quality control. Theoretically speaking, there's been a lot of development in Chinese pharmacopoeia. most in the preparation process, most of the chemicals can be preserved. But Chairman, your concept is also correct. We have seen compounds such as corabi. It may become methyl corabi after high temperature treatment. That being the case, we can accept this chemical as an ingredient for quality control. Can you give us information on how quality control is done in other places? Mr. Joseph Lee would ask for some supplementary information. Please include this. Dr. Joseph Lee, 5 minutes. I'd like to follow up on Mr. Yu's question. When it comes to the registration of PCMs, you consider the components. Of course, you have different kinds of ingredients, but you need, for instance, how many tails of this kind of herbal medicine, and then you follow a formula. So I think you are using the concept of ingredients for your standards. Now, if you can comply with the various requirements and the components, that means the medicine is safe. Do you ask for labeling? For instance, as soon as this cough syrup is opened, you have the a list of ingredients and the relative amount of each in the PCM. If that's the case, how come the trade has said that it is not possible and the costs are too expensive? Because as a layman, I don't understand this very well, and the trade hopes that the registration of PCM can help to promote the development of Chinese medicine in Hong Kong. We do have requirements on label. Now, if there are less than 3 ingredients, they must be all listed out. If there are more than 3, then at least half of the ingredients must be listed. And we hold many, over a dozen consultation forums in a year with the trade. And I think the difficulties of testing is because in the past, the trade relied on experience in the production of PCMs. But this is gradually changing in these 10 years. First, the trade didn't quite understand the requirements for registration, and gradually they've come to understand the requirements. And we've also asked local labs to help them to set up the testing standards. And this is something to do with time. In the past 10 years, as mentioned by the chairman, there have been rapid development in Chinese pharmacopoeia in terms of the amount of information available and also the ingredients to be tested. So it's been easier to establish product specifications now. However, we do appreciate the difficulties and the blind spot of the trade. So we've taken the initiative to hold forums. We have technical meetings to discuss technical issues in registration of PCM. We ask them to highlight certain ingredients in their product specifications. So we meet around once every 2 months. We hope that through such forums to discuss through such briefing sessions on technical issues, we hope that we can gradually resolve their difficulties. And we also invite stakeholders. We hope that what we do now can help the trade to overcome the difficulties. Well, is this the difficulty about Hong Kong standards? Yes. By having standards, we can help them to set up relevant product specifications. For instance, we can now test for cytosine A/B in a particular medicine. Now, if they can use it in the test, then it can help. Take coughing serious example. How do you attest for the efficacy, or how do you determine the efficacy? Well, this is about the formula. Well, there are herbs with different roles in a formula. It's just like the prescription by a Chinese medical practitioner. The prescription will state the amount to be used, and that will ensure the efficacy of the PCM. If members have no further questions, I have a few to ask. I'd like to follow up the question by Dr. Joseph Lee. Take honey and gutgun and other ingredients example. Well, you can state the amount used. However, for PCMs available in the market, different manufacturers may have different ingredients and a relative amount of each ingredient used. For instance, different manufacturers may be producing the same generic PCM, but the relative amount of ingredients used may differ a little bit. Now, will the government state in its pharmacopoeia that you must follow this relative formula? This is also about the formula. Dr. Law. We have a vetting panel under the CMB. And how do we vet formulas? For instance, they have a traditional standard formula. The relative amount of ingredients are fixed. However, new PCM may be different from the standard formula. So it is a traditional formula known to be effective, but the author, which is a PCM, a Chinese practical medical practitioner, may think that the relative amount can be adjusted appropriately according to his experience, and the new formula would be vetted by our CMB. And Chinese medical practitioners and university scholars of Chinese medicine will consider whether it is appropriate or not.
If it is found to be okay, we will allow it to be registered. If not, we will ask them to register under the category of new medicines. Ms. Elizabeth Quat, we may have to adjust the time. We have only 15 minutes left for this item. 5 minutes for you. Thank you, Chairman. I don't know much about this issue, and I'd like to seek a better understanding of it. The industry is saying that the testing process poses a lot of difficulties, and I have heard about complaints saying that the tests are expensive and so their operating costs are going up, and it's difficult to identify professional laboratories, and also the process is long and cumbersome, and they are helped by experts, but it doesn't help. And it's also difficult for the industry to communicate with the government departments. I'd like to seek some understanding into these complaints and to know where the difficulties are. For example, testing costs. I'd like to know how many accredited or qualified laboratories there are in Hong Kong. There are 20, including those on the mainland. Do you think 20 is a good enough number? Do you have a plan to increase the number? We can expand the list if necessary. We have talked to the corresponding unit on the mainland. There are many applications, but there are only 20. They are all privately run, is that right? And is it that it is up to them to decide on the testing fees? Hong Kong is a free market economy, and the tests are commercial behavior. We have informally looked at the price list. There is not a lot of difference between the price lists. If there is a big difference, the very expensive ones will not be able to survive. But there are only 20. I like to talk about an existing PCM. If it is subject to test so as to meet your requirements, how much money and time are we talking about? In terms of safety, the tests may cost just over $10,000. We look for heavy metals and also pesticides. And we are talking about very common tests. Each will cost about $3,000. As for quality, which is also the concern of members, first of all, they have to build up the quality. And that may cost $30,000 to $40,000 depending on the complexity. If the standards have been established, the test itself will not be very expensive, and normally it's about $5,000. As for other more complicated tests, acute toxicity, we will actually feed the medicine to small animals to see whether the animal is affected. And chronic toxicity may have to be done over a period of time, and more lab animals may be used, and that may cost over $100,000. And in fact, we are talking about tonic or health supplements, because people will be taking these supplements for a long time or over a long period of time. If it is just a normal medicine, we will only ask them to do a test about its acute toxicity. Also, we have stability test. That is how long the medicine will be good for. And that will cost about a few tens of thousands of dollars. You mentioned 10,000, over 100,000, etc. How much are we talking about overall? In other words, how many steps do people have to go through, how many certificates they need to acquire, and how much in total do they have to spend in order for a PCM to be registered? You say if there's a health supplement, it has to be tested for its chronic toxicity, and then if it's a medicine, the acute toxicity. And can you draw us a table for better understanding? If you can't do it, what is the average cost and how much time are we talking about? Because the SMEs are complaining that it takes a long time, the costs are very high, and they say they are having a very difficult time, and we want to know whether their complaint is reasonable, and we need your assistance here. Okay, can you take that question? Mr. Law, please explain again. We understand that you have this concern. In simple terms and in general, if we do not go for chronic toxicity test, I think a manufacturer may have to spend over $100,000 for a medicine to be registered. As for the time required, it depends on the test requirements. If it is for acute toxicity, it should be completed within a month, and within 3 months, the report should be available. And as for safety tests, pesticides, residues, and heavy metals, etc., the report can be available within 1 or 2 months. But the stability tests can take a bit longer. If we go for real-time tests, and if the PCM says it has a quality preservation time of 3 years, then we will have to do the test for 3 years. But we have an alternative option. If the quality test will say that it is good for 2 years, then we can have an expedited test, and within 3 months we can have the test result. The CMB is doing a lot to help the industry resolve this problem of tests taking very long. Yes, Undersecretary, I'd like to respond to Ms. Kwat's question on timing. If the test itself takes time, then yes, it will take time. But sometimes the industry also said that the entire process takes a long time. And by that I understand is that they might not have supplied all the necessary information. So they are told that they needed to file more information, and that again took some time. So they may find the time of the entire process quite long. That might be a cause, but the test for different things will require different time periods. Do I have to queue up again? Yes, but because Mr. Yu Si-wing has raised his hand. Mr. Yu. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to talk about the laboratories. You rely on them to give you the test results. You say they are both in Hong Kong and on the mainland. Do you have a mechanism to review such labs for its professional standards, its equipment and facility, and its work attitude? Do you have a mechanism to review such labs? Is it that some of the labs have been taken off the list because they do not meet the requirements? Mr. Law? Thank you for the question. I can say that Hawkless colleagues will go and take a look at these accredited labs under ISO 1705. I myself have also done such certification work. I will go on site and sample check the test results and to see whether they follow established procedures. And we also look at internal quality control and the relevant data. We have an established mechanism to do this. In fact, the mainland is even more severe. They have statutory status and they are assessed by the certification unit of the country. And they may not be able to continue with certain tests if they fail in a particular aspect. Right now, we haven't seen any abnormal situation. Mr. Yu, I think it's okay that you're doing this in Hong Kong, but as for the mainland, you only rely on the mainland supervisory units and you accept the results of lab tests. But do you have regular exchange, and can you also do sample checking on such labs? Mr. Yu, there is an international standard. We have the Hawkless test. And an unknown substance will be sent to the lab, and then the lab will test it and come back with results. If the lab doesn't do a good job, it would mean that the lab has failed. Maybe Mr. Law, you can supplement. Mr. Chairman, your concept is correct. From time to time, we in fact subject the labs to an examination to make sure that the data from a certain test will match the test done by ourselves. So there is a very strict mechanism for both the mainland and Hong Kong. And I believe we should allow the hawkless professionals and also the mainland authorities to ensure the stability of the data. Mr. Chairman, you talked about an international standard, is that right? Oh, if that's the case, then it's okay. Ms. Elizabeth Quat, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to follow up on my last question. You said just now they needed to get many certificates. But can I really get one figure from you? And that is for PCM to comply with all the requirements, can I get a time frame? What is the shortest time and the longest time for a PCM to get registration? It's very difficult to say, actually. First of all, the PCM itself can vary in complexity. It can be subject to a different number of tests, and also whether the operator or manufacturer complies with requirements in submitting information. Okay, I know. I just want a benchmark. How many months, for example, would be a reasonable time? And can the work be completed with within a number of months? Because I like to try to find a solution for the industry's complaints. I'm not challenging your professionalism. You can give me an example for this category of PCM or this category of health supplement. If you submit all the necessary information, we can complete the process within a certain number of months, for example. So people will know if they comply with the requirements and submit all the information, then they should expect a certificate within 6 months or 9 months. And then if somebody has waited for 3 years, then he knows something is abnormal. Or else, we don't know what we are arguing. I need that benchmark, please. If you also find that manufacturers always neglect the completion of documentation for you, can you issue a comprehensive guideline for them, including FAQs? Maybe you can have dedicated staff to answer their questions to help them prepare all the documentation required so as to quicken the process. As a non-professional, we ask the same questions, but indeed it's very difficult. We cannot set a benchmark for the medicines. Say if it is a health supplement for babies, it is very commonly used in Hong Kong, but there are different manufacturers and their specifications are different.
If they use the standard ancient formula with no deviation, and they have decided on product specifications that can be tested very quickly, then it can be done very quickly. But if there is deviation from the standard formula, ancient formula, then the CMB will have to discuss why such deviations, and if the CMB agrees to the deviations, then the product can be tested and registration can be done very quickly. So even for a commonplace PCM can vary in terms of the circumstances. So it is hard to decide what is the average time, and the choice of the manufacturer is also important. He can choose different product specifications. It is for the manufacturer to decide. So, as said by Dr. Law, to address the concerns of the trade, they have done a lot of they've done a list of FAQs, frequently asked questions, for the benefit of the trade. Well, common FAQs can be divided into a few groups. First, problem with quality. We have a list of FAQs addressing that, and also got a list of FAQs to address the question of efficacy, of safety. But I know it is difficult to get the trade to understand just using a list of FAQs. So we've taken the initiative to organize a number of briefing sessions and discussion forums almost every month on the classification of PCMs. And we've got 5 larger consultation forums for the trade. And I will also brief them on the change in the policy of registration and also facilitating measures. And we've also taken this proactive approach. If the applicant encounters difficulties, we will arrange a meeting with him, and the court officer in charge of the case will discuss with the applicant and tell him the requirements of the CMB, hoping to offer assistance. I understand, but it seems that information provided on the website and briefing sessions are not effective in helping manufacturers to address their problems. Some manufacturers are willing to invest into this area and employ specialists to do it. I think your briefing sessions are rather general. Can you offer training sessions or training courses so that you can train specialists to help manufacturers? You talked about choice, but the problem with the manufacturers, maybe they don't even know what to choose. We want long-term development, so shouldn't you train people who have expertise to do this? We do understand that, but we have to sort out one idea. The Department of Health is an approving body. It's just like the examiner. So the choice of product specifications and also adjustment of the formula, we can offer some information. We can tell manufacturers recent changes in pharmacopoeia, but we cannot tell them what to do. No, there may be some misunderstanding. We're not asking you to make the choice for them. The problem is they don't even know what to choose. They don't even know what to ask. If, for instance, if I'm a layman, I don't even know what question to ask. You should help the trade to resolve this matter. Otherwise, there can be no development. For instance, you have an examination. You should provide the syllabus and so that they know what they will be examined on. If they have never attended such courses, they don't know what's the syllabus, then that's why they panic. They don't know how they will be examined. So you've made a big jump to require them to take an examination, so to speak. Now, I will not talk about history. I will talk about the current problems we have. The question is how we can help the trade to overcome the hurdles. For instance, some of them wanted to introduce a dozen or so new PCMs in the market, but since they have been unsuccessful in getting registration, they might decide to give up. So we should think of ways to help them instead of just testing them. We should help them to be able to introduce new PCMs into the market. If you raise the standards to such a high level, well, maybe they're already up to that level, but it's just that they don't know the specifications or the standards. They don't know how to achieve or to pass your test. Well, the Departments of Health and the CMB are not just there to test the manufacturers, but of course they have to ensure the quality, the efficacy and safety of the PCM is acceptable. In their communication with the trade, they have identified a number of problems such as expensive testing costs, so on and so forth. And as Dr. Law said, they have very detailed FAQs on safety, quality, and efficacy, telling them what standards to achieve. Reading the FAQs alone may not be sufficient, and therefore they have briefing sessions and consultation forums. They are forums for interaction and exchange of views, and they have people from the laboratories to tell them that if they have a problem with the choice of items to display their quality, that there can be communication between the two parties. I've met with members of the trade. At first, they were not too clear about the requirements. As Dr. Law said, they hold monthly meetings, and the manufacturer may not be available on that particular date. So they have developed the service to the extent that the officer in charge will meet the applicant whose case has failed and will advise the applicant on how to pass the requirements. Relevant information will be provided. So you've already done all these, right? Still, a few days ago, I still had complaints from the trade of a similar nature. So it's okay for you to carry on with what you are doing, and what you're doing may really be helpful to some manufacturers. But there is this strong view from the trade that what you are doing is not enough to help them to overcome their difficulties. I'm not asking you to provide training courses yourselves, but you can discuss with the education sector so that we can train talents to promote the development of this trade. Well, you just gave us the costs. You may say that they're not too expensive, but SMEs may not be able to afford so much. So would there be ways to lower the threshold? For instance, the trade has asked for an official laboratory. For instance, can you give them clear guidelines so that they can do their own tests? Can this be considered so as to further lower their testing costs? What I want is a solution, not what you are doing. You have done a good job. You have done a lot. The question is, what more can you do to help the trade to further develop? Because they think that the government is in their way. If I may rephrase Ms. Quat's questions, she said that the trade has waited for 10 years. Although for some of them, they have got HKP while the PCM can be sold, but it is not permanent. And the manufacturers have provided the necessary documents, and then they submit further information when required by the department, and then they wait. They don't know where's the Gold Coast. We really pity the complainants because they don't know where the goalpost is. They don't know how they can score. So can you tell them? Understand that the trade may feel that they are not able to achieve the objective. Please explain to the trade, and the Department of Health has done a lot to provide them information. We have held many briefing sessions, and we've also provided information on changes in the pharmacopoeia in the past 10 years. We give them timely information as to what should be the product specifications. It's not that we have shifted the goalposts, rather it's because there have been changes in the Chinese pharmacopoeia, so we have provided update information to them. The registration of a medicine is always not easy, no matter whether it is a Western or Chinese medicine, because there is the question of safety. And the trade has to understand that many ancient formulae did not have literature. So the CMP has got experts, not just from practitioners, but from universities as well. The CMP will have to study the formula and ask the applicant to adjust the formula. Now, you ask for a solution, Ms. Quat. We are not able to give you one now, but we can encourage universities which are carrying out research studies, and many of our colleagues have taken Chinese medicine programs in universities. We will ask whether universities can cooperate with the trade. Universities have scholars teaching both Chinese medicine and also practice. Some of them are also on the CMB. They are fully aware of the changes in the Chinese pharmacopoeia. They are on our standards committee. So we will discuss with universities to see whether they can serve the trade and help to explain to the trade, so that there can be more communication between our universities and the trade. And then we'll enhance the provision of information to the trade if they have problems. They can ask us for information, which we as the regulator are able to give. Ms. Quat asked whether we can have more laboratories in Hong Kong and whether there can be a government laboratory. Now, first, this is not a simple laboratory. It must be accredited by the mainland. They must have the test standards for different items, and it's not easy for us to achieve that. You talked about 20 laboratories. I'd like to know whether these 20 laboratories are able to carry out all the tests, including a general stability. Yes, but some laboratories specialize in this particular aspect, and some specialize in other aspects. So it is not for us to add laboratories to the list. We'll discuss with the main authorities to explore whether there are more such laboratories so that we can put them on our list.
For the same reason, there is not one government laboratory that can do everything, because different tests, different processes, and different equipment are involved. So that is impossible. I'm just trying to explain this matter, but we will continue to ask questions. We will ask the mainland whether more laboratories can be added to the list. Chairman, can I add? Well, because of time constraint, just last question from you, all right? Yes, thank you. I was asking for more support for the industry. You said you would talk to universities. Maybe that's one way to do it. But could there be extramural short courses? Can you encourage universities to open such courses? We are not talking about manufacturing a PCM or becoming a Chinese medicine practitioner. I'm just talking about communicating with the government so they can complete the testing process. Some people are saying they cannot communicate with the government. So can we have some training courses so enterprises can send people to read the courses so they know what to do? Mr. Law? Thank you. I can give you some actual examples. Some universities organize medicine formulation courses. And those people in Chinese medicine who are interested in this can read the courses. We do not have a lot of people who can actually make PCM in Hong Kong, so the universities have already taken that first step. And in the past, we have had some training about the testing and certification process. If I remember correctly, the CU Hong Kong was funded by ITC on microscopic testing and certification for lab operators, so they are better equipped to tackle Chinese medicine. So there are these examples, and work has started in this aspect, but I cannot say it is comprehensive or being done on a large scale. The industry is of the view that your guideline is not clear enough. I think you should improve upon it. Thank you, Chairman. Okay, you have asked questions for 20 minutes, even though the questions are very to the point. I will follow up on one point. From 2003, there is migration from Hong Kong HKP to HKC, and the figures can be quite unsettling. Only 3% of people or PCM have been able to do that migration. So is it that there was a problem with manufacturers, or is it that our system is problematic? So manufacturers didn't know what to do. They wanted to comply with your system, but sometimes even the laboratories didn't know what to do. I think that is a very practical difficulty. Now, registration has not been satisfactory. My question for you is, have you provided assistance, including subsidies to manufacturers and other institutions to help them get registered? And in terms of Chinese medicine development, do you have a fund for the industry to apply so these SMEs can have successful migration or transition? If now they cannot migrate from HKP to HKC, the deadline for documentation submission is June 2015. What are you going to do beyond that deadline? Will you ban the sale of such PCM? What are you going to do? That's the second question. Number 3. I'd like to thank Mr. Choi for the question because he was watching the telecast of this meeting. He said very often there was no regulation of traditional PCM, and people only depended on traditional manufacturing processes to make the PCM, but now we make use of modern methods, and also you're applying Western medicine standards. So there is huge difficulty, and they have not been subject to any training process, so they cannot interface with the present system. So it seems people are of the view that the administration should do more in this aspect. Undersecretary, I will give a brief reply to your questions, and then Mr. Law can supplement. Number 1, funding. The ITC has funding to help manufacturers. Can you give me a list about the funding assistance? Yes, we can do that. And the DH and the CMB are giving assistance. And frankly speaking, we have been liaising closely with the industry. I can understand what you and other members said, that after the DH has done so much, the industry still has aspirations and they are still facing difficulties. Well, that is understandable. The DH has very close liaison with the industry, and it is in fact stepping up communication and sending out the most information possible. And the DH and CMB will provide information, the technology required, and also training courses available to help them understand. The second question about the deadline for submitting product specification and general stability test reports. Those have to be submitted to the CMB. The CMB can make a decision depending on the situation. Number 3, that we apply Western medicine systems on Chinese traditional medicine. Well, that's not the case. We have explained that we have Chinese experts on the assessment panel, and they make use of the Chinese pharmacopoeia and traditional Chinese medicine systems on PCM. But it doesn't mean that all the difficulties are resolved. So if the industry has difficulties, it still doesn't mean that we have applied Western medicine standards. It is just because we are applying the registration system which was not existent before. The DS would like to add. Yes, I like to say that we understand the industry thinks that the registration process is a challenge. And as you reported, a member of the public has said that they would make use of traditional prescriptions or formula, and they have been making PCM in traditional methods, and now they are subject to a registration system. Would it be very difficult for the industry to adapt? We need this registration system because, after all, these are medicines, and we have to be mindful about the safety of the medicines for use by the public. We go for safety, quality, and efficacy tests. Safety is essential, but the public would also require to know the quality and efficacy before they will take a certain medicine. The users must have confidence, and this can be afforded by the registration system. What about the export of Chinese PCM later on from Hong Kong? Without a registration system, first of all, people in Hong Kong might not be confident about the safety of PCM, and in fact, there could be a lot of constraint on further development of the industry for Hong Kong PCM. And in fact, the mainland is facing the same problem. If Hong Kong PCM wants to go global, it has to do something that is in line with the mainland and also other countries' requirements. And registration and certification will be essential. I hope the industry will understand that with this registration system, they can take PCM in Hong Kong to a new horizon. And this is a necessary step. With regard to members' questions, we will take them back to the CMB. Maybe the CMB can give more information to applicants and also say more about reassessment, etc. Okay. The DH, of course, is well intended, but still there is a big gap between the administration and the industry. Now, how can we narrow that gap? Maybe at the next meeting we can invite the industry to come here for a hearing so they can directly tell you their concerns. Mr. Yu, would you agree? And secondly, I will require the administration to provide supplementary information on the issue. Dr. Joseph Lee wanted a comparison table with regard to quality testing for Chinese and Western medicine. Secondly, a comparison between registration of Chinese and Western medicine, and also testing standards for PCM, how the standards are set in different places. And I was asking about funding sources for the industry to apply, and what will those funds be for. All right, okay. Now we go to the second item on the agenda, GMP. Under Secretary, would you like to take us through the paper? Yes, please. GMP means Good Manufacturing Practice. And GMP is the acronym. At present, the GMP requirement in respect of PCMs in Hong Kong is not manufacturing. According to Chinese Medicine Ordinance, Cap 549, PCM manufacturers are still required to apply for licenses issued by the Chinese Medicines Board under the Chinese Medicine Council of Hong Kong, irrespective of whether they are GPM compliant. Licensed Chinese medicines, if they think that they comply with the GMP, they can apply for a GMP certificate. At present, there are 12 licensed PCM manufacturers who have been awarded with GMP certificates. To ensure the safety of PCM and enhance its quality, and also to align with international trend of GMP development in the production of medicines, it was announced in the 2010-11 policy address that the government would actively engage the trade to work out a timetable for mandatory compliance with the GMP for the manufacture of PCM. Having taken reference of the GMP development in other countries and regions, the CMB recommended in May 2011 to adopt in due course the GMP standard of the Pharmaceutical Inspection Convention and Pharmaceutical Inspection Cooperation Scheme, PICS, as a licensing requirement for local PCM manufacturers. Since May 2011, the CMB has been widely consulting traders of Chinese medicine to gather their views through various channels. And of course, we have provided assistance for the trade to adapt to GMP in PCM manufacture. And the industry actually thinks that it is also beneficial to them. In order to note the concerns of the trade and also help the trade, the DFH has already asked experts and relevant government departments to brief the Chinese traders on the requirements of hardware and software for GMP. Training and consultancy services in relation to GMP and support measures have also been provided by government. Licensed PCM manufacturers who have been awarded with GMP certificate will also be invited to share their experiences in the implementation of GMP. Meanwhile, the DH has provided information on the proposed plan, and the DH has also met with GMP applicants who already have factory premises to explain to them the current guidelines, as well as discussing with them on various issues, including the plan set up facilities and manpower in order to assist the PC manufacturers to implement GMP. The General Support Program under ITC approved funding in June 2013 to support a one-year training project conducted by the Hong Kong IB to provide basic GMP training to all local manufacturers free of charge.
GMP.
To further support the trade to introduce GMP, the ITC will, together with the Hong Kong Jockey Club Charities Trust, support Hong Kong IB to conduct a 3-year project to set up a GMP product development and technical support platform for traditional oral solid PCM products, so that it will support GMP contract manufacturing services for 4 most common types of PCM solid formulations in Hong Kong. And the jointly funded project will also set up a GMP training platform to provide internship opportunities for Chinese medicines workers and students, so as to support the upgrading and development of local Chinese medicine industry. Regarding the way forward, we hope that the above-mentioned measures will enhance the professional standard of the trade in Hong Kong. And we will also maintain very close communication with the trade on the timetable and specific arrangements in the implementation of GMB. Thank you. Mr. Yu, to be followed by Mr. Vincent Fang. Mr. Vincent Fang, welcome. We decided to invite deputations from the trade at the next meeting. I agree. I fully support you, Chairman. Okay, Mr. Yu. Many mainland and overseas Chinese come to Hong Kong to buy PCMs. That means they have confidence in our products. Even for the same product, they prefer to buy in Hong Kong because of the exchange rate, and also there is quality assurance in Hong Kong. Of course, we should give people the impression that we have scientific management so that we can build up people's confidence in Hong Kong brands. The General Association of Manufacturers have introduced the Q mark, which is positive for image building of Hong Kong products. And I understand that the administration would like to adopt GMP for development of Chinese medicine in Hong Kong. From what I have heard from the trade, they are very worried. There will be one of the criteria for registration. There are over 200 manufacturers in Hong Kong. Only 12 have been given GMP status. As we all know, in Hong Kong, there are many traditional CPM manufacturers. They have formulas handed down by their ancestors, and they are very effective. According to the administration, all PCMs must meet the standards for safety, quality, and efficacy before they can be sold in Hong Kong. I think you should first adopt an encouragement approach. For instance, people can use GMP to advertise their products. For instance, there must be a certain amount of investment before you can get that accreditation. But if without GMP, a PCM cannot be sold, then it is a pity, because the PCM itself may be very safe and effective and good. So while the manufacturer cannot provide the relevant documents, they're able to attain these requirements. And there are medium-sized manufacturers that are not able to obtain GMP, while the PCM produced is much sought after by even visitors in Hong Kong. So you should adopt an encouragement approach. If the product has is widely accepted and popular in Hong Kong, on the mainland, and even in Southeast Asian markets, then the scale of production may be enhanced, and then the manufacturer may be able to attain GMP status. Yes, I do understand your concerns, and I think the concerns of the trade are understandable, because GMP requirements are indeed rather high. However, the administration would like to set GMP as our long-term status, and I thank you for your support in our bid to enhance the overall quality of our products and also to be in line with international standards. We do agree that there is still some discrepancy, but we have got successful cases in Hong Kong. So our target is to try to communicate with the trade so that we can set up a timetable for mandatory compliance with GMP. Yes, we are willing to listen to views from the trade. At this moment, we have not decided on the actual timetable. And currently, GMP compliance is also not mandatory. Let's see if Dr. Law has anything to add. Thank you. There are two types of international standards. First, whether the PCM itself is registered. And second, whether the manufacturer has obtained a GMP status. So, these two criteria will enable the public to know the standard of a PCM concerned. Mr. Yu, perhaps the DS can comment on your suggestion. Mr. Yu, I fully appreciate the difficulties of the trade, but when it comes to medicine, we must be in alignment with international standards in issues of safety, for instance. The efficacy and the safety and quality aside, if we are to set up another set of standards for brand building, is a separate issue, because the brand of a product is slightly different from the efficacy or the purpose of a PCM. Now, each PCM has to be registered. The brand name of the manufacturer itself will not enable a PCM to be acceptable even though it has not attained the required standards. We agree that to ensure that Chinese medicine can develop in Hong Kong, we have to go through this process, and therefore this is very much a negotiating process. We will assess the trade to move towards that goal. The timetable, the ultimate target date is negotiable, but the registration of a PCM is also related to the manufacturing process, and that is about GMP. So GMP, whether the manufacturer adopts GMP is different from the registration of a PCM. So we'll assist them using funding from ITC in the production of oral formulations, for instance. We understand that most PCMs are produced outside Hong Kong. So although perhaps there is room for some adjustment. Mr. Vincent Fang, yesterday afternoon when I received this paper, I felt rather glad. At least after discussing with the administration for a long time, there can be a platform set up. When we first started our discussion with you, there were about 400 manufacturers in Hong Kong. Now the number has dropped to 279, although 12 have are already awarded with GMP certificates. That means some smaller manufacturers are already phased out because they cannot fulfill your GMP requirements. I think for these 12 manufacturers, they have products that are rather effective. So from 500, the number of manufacturers have dropped to 279. I'd like to know why they no longer in operation. Is it because they do not have GMP certificates, or because their products are not effective? And your paper is rather general. You talked about a joint platform to be set up using funding from ITF and the Hong Kong Jockey Club Charities Trust. It is a 3-year project. Can you explain to us how that platform will operate? Can manufacturers ask you to process their PCMs, or will it operate like the science park? Can they give you their formulas and you produce the products from them? For some manufacturers, their production per year is not high. If you do it for them, perhaps maybe in 1 or 2 days you'll be able to produce all the amount they can sell in a year. So how will the new platform operate? Will the manufacturer have to give you their formula? Because many manufacturers will refuse to do that. So how do you, can you please respond to these 2 points? Thank you. Mr. Fang. Thank you for your question on the number of manufacturers. Now, GMP is just a target. It is not mandatory yet in Hong Kong. So 12 have taken their own initiative to apply for GMP certificates. As for why we have 279 manufacturers in Hong Kong, Dr. Law can address this point. When manufacturers apply for licenses, well, in fact, one manufacturers had one corporation may have 5 or 6 manufacturers, so we want them to simplify. So after so many years, there may be a drop in the number of manufacturers, but in fact the impact on the trade is not that significant. In fact, for instance, instead of 6 plants, they have got 1 plant. So there is not much impact on the actual operation of these manufacturers. Perhaps you can comment on details of the platform as required by Mr. Fang. Yes, the administration has noted the trade's requests. They think that they may need a lot of funds to operate a GMP compliant plant, and they may not have the technology to be GMP compliant at once. So we will continue to communicate with the trade and discuss with different organizations to see how we can help the trade. We know that in Hong Kong IB, the Institute of Biotechnology, it is already GMP certified.
It is also providing consultancy services. We'll try to see whether they can build a platform to help the industry in different aspects. Number 1, if the industry cannot go for GMP manufacturing now, maybe the processes can be outsourced to the Hong Kong IB, so there can be processing done at the Hong Kong IB plant. This is what the Hong Kong IB is already doing. Number 2, if they need consultancy services, perhaps the Hong Kong IB can supply that service. We know that the Hong Kong IB has the capacity to do this, but the plant itself cannot be further expanded at this stage. And that is why we are cooperating with the Jockey Club Charity Fund to provide funding to them so they can expand the plant, so they can go for more solid formulations for oral taking. And they can also provide a training base to provide training and consultancy to the industry. You asked whether the manufacturer has to provide the formula. Well, it should be for the manufacturer and the Hong Kong IB to enter into an agreement that the Hong Kong IB is only doing the manufacturing on behalf of the manufacturer who supplies the formula. And that kind of agreement is legally binding. The Hong Kong IB is independent and non-profit making. It is actually a research unit under the CU Hong Kong. If the industry can trust them and cooperate with them, the industry can in fact take care of their GMP aspirations very easily and very soon. I know my time is up. No, you can have a follow-up. What I want to say is the manufacturers may be small, they are SMEs, they do not employ a lot of people. Later on, you say the Hong Kong IB can help to do the manufacturing. Say I'm a manufacturer employing 20 to 30 people. If I entrust the production to Hong Kong IB, does it mean I should dismiss my staff? You give me the product and then I will do the sale of the product. In other words, I give you the formula and you do the manufacturing for me. Is that what you are saying? If that's the case, then the staff employed by the practitioners may lose their jobs. And is it that they should look for a job at the Hong Kong IB instead? This is a big difficulty faced by the manufacturers. If they have to dissolve their own factories, then they would just become a distributor. You know, we give you the formula, the Jockey Club will provide the funding, and the Hong Kong IB will do the production. Are you talking about that mode of operation? I can add, in fact, the platform provides many different kinds of services to the industry. If a manufacturer would like to do a small production only, it can consider outsourcing it to the Hong Kong IB for the production. But if a manufacturer is already doing the production, but it only needs technology support, now if they already have a GMP certificate, then they can ask the Hong Kong IB to provide assistance, and then the manufacturer can do its own production. Because if the factory itself would like to go up a higher rung in terms of technology, the Hong Kong IB platform can also provide technology support. But Chairman, there is a small problem here. The Hong Kong IB can teach factories about the software in terms of management, administration, and staff management. That can be learned. But then if I already rent factory premises and it doesn't comply with GMB requirements, so what should I do? You can teach me the software, but I already have the hardware, and if you subject my hardware for testing, I need to do renovation and other adjustments, but that would be beyond me. Dr. Chan or Professor Chan, if you remember, I was telling you and Janet Wong that the industry would like you to provide the hardware and then you teach them the software. So they can rent the premises from you and they can go from there. You can build the hardware for them. It must be GMB compliant if it's built by you. And then you can teach them the software, meaning the processes, etc. And they would be willing to follow you. And they will be able to comply with GMP requirements more easily. There is another point. the administration is not mandating this. This is still voluntary. Certainly, the industry would also like to enhance the quality of their products. But if you look further, you should not stop at GMP. You have the PICs as well. After complying with GMP, later on, you might also require people to comply with PICs. And the industry would be having a hard time catching up with your requirements. So can you build the hardware for the factory operators? A brief reply. On factory premises, the Hong Kong Science Park Corporation is reviewing the use of land in the industrial estates. After the review is completed, they may be able to propose ways to help the industry. Mr. Yu Siwing. Thank you, Chairman. The Undersecretary was talking about the gap. The gap is indeed too big, and I think this is quite a scare to the SMEs. I'd like to ask you whether you will provide a transitional period, or else the industry will find it hard to support your proposal. You might stifle the entire industry, or people will resist your requirements. I don't think you want to see either of that. Dr. Fang was right. I think many of them cannot comply with the hardware because it's very costly. Maybe we should start with the software. You provide training. You set down the basic software requirements, and then you provide support. The industry will try to adapt as much as possible. Maybe the software is comparatively easy, but maybe the very experienced practitioners may not be able to learn the new trick, but they can hire younger ones who will be able to comply. I'd like to ask you whether you have a timetable to launch GMP, because it can be quite scary for the SMEs. Sometimes you would launch policies without consultation, like licensing guest houses. I hope you will understand the difficulties faced by the industry. The Hong Kong IB will provide the production lines, and you are going to encourage the industry to make use of those production lines. Have you talked to the industry? How many of them are happy to accept your proposal? How many of them have you talked to? If you haven't even started to ask them, or if many of those you asked objected, then you might be unilateral, and this may just be wishful thinking on your part. Thank you, Mr. Yu. Yes, we understand. This is our objective, and in fact, we'd like to help the industry to enhance the quality of PCM and also to align with international trend of GMP development. That is the premise, and we'd like to continue to work hard, and hopefully together with ITC, we can try to see what we can do with the software in the transition. I agree with you. The software is the easier part. In Hong Kong, land is always a problem. Maybe Dr. Chan can say more about the software. I think a lot has been done, and also consultation with the industry. When we consulted the industry, under the ITC, we have the Chinese Medicine Research and Development Council, and we spend a lot of time on giving support to GMP. We have 5 members who are from the industry, and they gave us a lot of advice and comments. In the short term, making use of the approach we detailed will be a quick way to help the industry. We understand that GMP is not mandatory now. The industry can continue to learn and slowly enhance its capacity and technological level. So gradually they can comply with GMP. But then in the short term, we can make use of this platform to help them. The platform cannot solve all the problems, but at least it is an option. If they find it feasible to do GMP like this, and if they are willing to give it a try, this is quite a good option. My question has not been answered. I was saying whether you consulted the industry and whether they are happy to make use of the production lines at Hong Kong IB. Did you? Through the Chinese Medicine Research and Development Council, we consulted the industry and they unanimously supported our proposal. We did not ask each and every PCM manufacturer in Hong Kong, but as I said, this is an option. They can continue to do what they are doing, but if they want to enhance themselves so as to go nearer GMP requirements, and if they can't do it within their own factories, then they can make use of the platform to do it. It is almost 12:45. I will extend the meeting by 15 minutes so we can ask all the questions. Now I'd like to ask the officials. Is it the PICS standard, the highest standard in the world? Maybe Mr. Law can answer the question. Thank you. PICS is adopted by Australia and many European countries. This is internationally recognized, and it is GMP at quite a high standard, but PRC is not a member of PICS. We would make reference to the WHO GMP requirements. The Hong Kong GMP guideline has been drawn up making reference to the WHO requirements. So countries can pick and choose whether they want to follow PICS. But basically, PICS is a GMP requirement that is comprehensive and of a high standard. Okay, Hong Kong has not taken reference from PICS. But according to what Dr. Fang said, you might go down that direction. We understand that 270 odd are SMEs, and if they are required to adopt GMP, it's already very challenging for them. And later on, if you subject them to PICS, I don't think many of them can comply. I asked the administration to think twice. When I was in school, teachers would scold students who were not willing to try both difficult and easy mathematical problems. So you did not know anything about mathematics. And now, like students, we have already done what is easy, but we are not happy to attempt what is more difficult. So can you provide a step for the industry to take so they can do it in stages in order to fill this gap in between? I understand the Hong Kong IB has this GMP compliant plant which can do the production or processing on behalf of the SMEs. Now, if the factories or manufacturers would like to approach Hong Kong IB for production, what do they have to consider? A manufacturer was telling me that they would have to transfer the license to the Hong Kong IB.
And then the name printed on the package will be Hong Kong IB instead of themselves. So can you please comment on their worry? Thank you. I will address your first concern now. As I said just now, GMP is our long-term target. As you all know, a PCM is not just a food. It we have to consider its efficacy, quality, and safety. We understand that you would want to have a transitional arrangement. We want to address the trade's concerns as far as possible. Now, if they need the software, for instance, we'll help them to train talents who are interested in doing GMP. We will provide the necessary training, and perhaps such manufacturers can outsource the production of their PCMs. So this is our way forward. Why do we introduce GMP in Hong Kong? Because we want to be aligned with international practice. So that's the international standard to move, to attain. We cannot have our own standard if manufacturers. Now, if we compromise the standard, they may think that the process is not so painful now, but they may not be able to comply with international standards. So we have to build up the trade's capability, and we do have some requirements in the system. Perhaps Mr. Law can answer your second question. Who is the owner of the product? I think we have explored several possibilities. If the production process is not fully entrusted to a third party, then by keeping the package, the manufacturer can keep its name, and the name can also be put on the label. Another option is if the whole production is entrusted to a third party, and yet the owner keeps its status as the distributor, then the name can be kept on the package. So the CMB has discussed this. Can you give us details later? Mr. Vincent Fang, 5 minutes. Thank you. Well, yesterday I attended the CS with you yesterday. I think Chinese medicine has good potential to be a new industry in Hong Kong because we can contribute to the mainland as well. I fully agree with the administration that we should introduce the GMP standard. However, I also welcome the proposal in the paper to engage in a 3-year project with the Hong Kong Jockey Club Charities Trust. So the expansion will be from 2,000 odd square feet to 8,500 square feet. I think it can be an R&D center for Chinese medicine. You should help the sector by offering technology. However, to resolve this problem, you should build a hardware that fully comply with GMP requirements. Manufacturers can hire space from you, and regarding software, as Dr. Chen said, you can train people so that they can learn how to do it. If there can be a GMP compliant production plant, it can be divided into smaller units for the industry to hire. Then there will be great potential for further development of the industry. So we have the hardware, we have the production plant, and Dr. Chen can offer the software. You can train talents and tell them new development and also R&D trends. It's true that it's hard to acquire land to provide the hardware. But this is an industry with good potential, and I think we should support it. Thank you. So it's just a comment. Is there such an opportunity for the administration to build a production plant for hire to the trade? Professor Chen, thank you. Under Dr. Chen, there is a committee discussing this for a long time. Perhaps Mr. Chen has something to add. Regarding the hardware, it depends on the Hong Kong Science and Technology parts view. I think we should wait for the board to complete its review, and by then we will be having some recommendations from the board on the further development of this matter. Dr. Kwokaki, first round. 5 minutes, please. Thank you, Chairman. I agree that there should be proper regulation and testing of PCMs. However, the problem is the speed. According to the paper, we started to do this in 2003. Dr. Kwok, we're already on the second paper. All right, I'd like to ask about the pace. Can you speed up? And if I've missed any part of the discussion, forgive me, Chairman. Para 9. According to Para 9, using the Hong Kong Jockey Club Charities Trust, the Hong Kong IB will expand its production area to 8,500 square feet. I'd like to know how much of the space will be taken up by PCI manufacturers. Will you allow manufacturers that cannot improve their production capability to use the space here? Can you please repeat your first question? The progress of GMP certification, can you expedite the process so that all manufacturers can be GMP certified as soon as possible, of course with your support, to help them to meet the Department of Health's requirements? Oh, thank you. This is the progress. So far, 12 licensed PCM manufacturers have been awarded with GMP certificates. Of course, over 200 have yet to acquire the status. Both the Department of Health and also ITC are trying to give them support in terms of the software aspect to let them understand the requirements and the technology and skills. Regarding money and production plans, of course, these are frequently quoted problems by the trade, and I think they are all working on that. We are now in a consultation period. We'll first understand the difficulties of the trade, and we've also introduced measures. So far, we don't have a target date for mandatory GMP compliance. So far, we don't have such a date yet because, as pointed out by members just now, the trade has identified a number of difficulties that cannot be overcome overnight. So we have to strike a balance. In the long term, our target is to move towards mandatory GMP compliance. However, given the difficulties, we don't want to draw a deadline, frustrating the sector. Take ITC as an example. It's trying to create different platforms with different organizations to help the trade to overcome their difficulties. So that's more or less the progress. But you must have a target. If you do not have a definite date, then there isn't sufficient safeguard for the public. You can fix it at 3 or 4 years. At least we have a target. It will not do if you do not have a target date at all. TS. Thank you, Dr. Kwok. Of course, the CNB has decided that in the long term, manufacturers should be GMP compliant. It is for the CNB to decide because it is a statutory body. However, the CNB has taken into consideration difficulties and grievances expressed by the trade. They've decided to set a platform first. We do understand that for further development of Chinese medicine, we need to implement GMP. We do understand that. We will relay this message to the CNB again. The board has to balance a number of factors. So it will be for the CNB to decide on the final implementation date. I'm afraid your time is up. Mr. Yu, 2 minutes. Regarding HKIB, is it that you have consulted the trade and they can support this initiative? Is it true that manufacturers are willing to change their mode of operation? I didn't quite get your answer or your meaning. When we consulted the trade, there were different views, and some came from you, Mr. Yu. What can we do to help the trade expeditiously? The setting up of the platform is one option. It will not resolve all problems. At least in the short term, it can provide support services for the trade. It can choose to use the service. It can also continue with its production allowed under the law. But it would like to enhance its capability. It can learn through the platform and to gradually upgrade its ability. I'm not too clear. You are going to implement GMP. If this manufacturer is not able to implement GMP, it can shift its production line to the Hong Kong IB. Are they willing to accept this reality? Now, if they can do both, of course, that is not a problem. The question is, have you ever asked manufacturers whether they are willing to stop their own production and make use of the joint platform instead? We are going to fund Hong Kong IB of CUHK to do this because there are many manufacturers that are not able, because the Hong Kong IB doesn't have the production capability to help the industry because of its limitations, and therefore we're going to boost its production area to help the manufacturers. Many manufacturers are interested to think about this.
We have recently conducted some training, and after that many SMEs asked whether Hong Kong IB would be happy to have their business, and it is said that if the platform is constructed, the Hong Kong IB will have more capacity to help. We can see that market demand, but is it a big demand? We don't know whether all 200 odd manufacturers would like to use it. It depends on how the platform will be constructed and the market response. Okay, thank you very much. Time is almost up, and thank you for attending the meeting. I'd like to say again, at the next meeting, we are going to invite manufacturer representatives for a hearing. You're okay with that, right? I asked you already. The next meeting will be held on the 16th of December, a Tuesday at 10:45. Thank you very much.